So hello, welcome to the video and welcome to Doha. I'm in one of the massage treatment rooms here, having just had a shower to refresh after my flight in. And in a short while I'll be departing on Qatar Airways in first class to Bangkok. Now for many years Qatar didn't put any focus at all on offering a first class product because they felt that their business class product, and specifically the QSuite, was better than most other airlines' first classes. They were wrong. But Qatar is now under new management, and that management seems to be putting a priority back on offering a first class cabin. But that's not something you can just do overnight, so Qatar has acquired a few aeroplanes from various other airlines that already have first class cabins installed, and specifically from Cathay Pacific. So today I'll be flying Qatar Airways on a former Cathay Pacific plane. It's had a paint job, they've reprogrammed the in-flight entertainment. It will look and feel very much like a Qatar plane, but we'll know that it was formerly operated by Cathay Pacific, and it has, I think it's 6, maybe 8 seats in a first class cabin. Very much looking forward to this, so if you'd like to see what Qatar's first class experience is like, stick around.
Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. Departing Doha in first class, and indeed arriving that way, gives you access to the Safwa lounge, one of the very best in the world. I've covered this place in a previous video, so won't linger on it here, except to say that it's a slightly different experience at 5 AM than it is at 8 PM. I had to wait for perhaps 20 minutes to use a shower and ended up using one attached to one of the therapy rooms in the spa. Even with these rooms repurposed, there's clearly not enough showers to meet demand at that time of day. I asked whether one of the private nap rooms was available, but once again was out of luck. Having only got an hour's sleep on my inbound flight, a nap would have worked nicely. I did enjoy some eggs Benedict in the restaurant, turkey ham here, alcohol is available, but they draw the line at serving pork. I'd only had about 3 hours on the ground for this connection, which really isn't enough for a lounge that good. I've been looking forward to another ride on one of the outrageously over-pimped first-class transfer buses, and duly presented myself at the connection gate within the Safwa lounge for that experience, only to be denied it. I didn't completely catch what the agent said, but I think she described the Bangkok service as a contract flight, and so the first-class bus transfer was not offered. I had no option but to walk through the terminal to get to the gate, which, as I'd assumed I'd be getting there on a bus, ended up being a bit of a pain as we departed from gate C24, which is the furthest possible gate from the Safwa lounge, to be found out the back of the new garden extension. A long, brisk walk hadn't been in my plan. Google tells me that these ex-Cathay planes are leased. They have a slightly different paint job to regular Qatar planes, but even so, it seems a little daft that a product sold as a Qatar first class experience doesn't actually give you the full Qatar first class experience. It took me so long to walk the length of the terminal that boarding was well underway when I got there. I tried to find a premium lane so I could maximise my time on board, only to be told that first class boarding had not yet started. It turned out that economy passengers were being buffered before boarding, so I was invited to sit and wait rather than waiting in a hot, crowded boarding area, which was fair enough. When we were called, there was no dispensation made for first passengers, and the two of us were commingled with the 53 or so business class passengers. I believe that cabin was full for this flight. It wasn't a great experience, to be honest, particularly as there was a secondary check after the first one for which all premium passengers were commingled with the last of the economy passengers. I may be wrong, but it felt like this check was solely to direct you to the correct boarding door, which should have been unnecessary had the boarding process been better designed, but as I said, I could be wrong. The contract word I'd heard in the lounge made me suspicious that Qatar has outsourced this boarding process, as it really didn't feel like the normal, smooth Qatar experience. And it would explain why the first class party buses weren't offered for this flight. So boarding was not great, but things got markedly better when I made it into the plane, a 14-year-old Boeing 777-300 series with extra range. It was delivered new to Cathay Pacific and operated with them for a decade before going into storage during the you-know-what. Qatar snapped it up in December 2021. into the 6-seat first class cabin set up in a 1-1-1 layout, and my first glimpse of my seat, a 14-year-old seat but a proper first class setup. The starboard side of the cabin has seats both sides of the aisle, probably the best choice for couples, but no pair is ideal for intimate chats. Only one of the 4 seats was occupied on my flight. A wall then separates that block of 4 from the window seats on the port side of the plane, which have a whisker more privacy, although none of the 6 are a booby seat in this cabin. One thing you'll quickly notice is that there's no overhead bins, which makes the space feel very open and airy. The crew invited me to stash my rollerboard in the seat's footwell, which wasn't a great solution, and it was only after we took off that I found this cupboard, which happily housed my bag and also stored the bedding, plus there was a handy hanger. I found it a bit odd that this wasn't pointed out to me on boarding. There's an immediate clue as to where the plane has come from. This panel controls the seat. It must be really, really tricky to reprogram this. To the left is a pretty deep storage bin, a remote for the entertainment system, and a largish surface from which the table emerges. A plug and a USB socket ahead of you too. That table emerges elegantly from its stored position. Eventually, and is substantial. It's easily big enough to allow buddy dining if you're flying with a buddy, which I wasn't. The screen lives alongside that storage cupboard and slides into a more convenient viewing position thusly. It's a 14-year-old screen, and whilst it may have been extraordinary when it was new, it didn't compare well to modern screens. Good enough, but not outstanding. It was best controlled via the remote, as the screen was a long way away. A very good range of options as you'd expect on a Qatar plane. I'd love to know whether they had to upgrade any of the plane's systems to be able to offer so much, as I can't believe the original entertainment would have done so 14 years ago. Noise-cancelling headphones and a bottle of fancy water were offered in a storage space under the screen. The same headphones as the business cabin, although in first they're presented in a bag. To your right is a pull-down armrest, a little flimsy actually, but it was useful for enhancing your lounging comfort in flight. Another seat control panel, a conveniently located sick bag and a reading lamp. Food and wine menus were waiting for me, more on them later, as was an amenity kit. That broke out into a couple of sub-packages, which in turn broke out into an array of goodies that will be very familiar if you've ever flown Qatar's business class, as I'm pretty sure the contents were identical. A different case, the same diptyque contents. It was an excellent seat 14 years ago, and it's still an excellent seat today. A few signs of wear and tear. Hey, Cathay Pacific isn't going to have retired its newest and best equipment, but it's a really excellent space to spend the 5 hours and 35 minutes it would take to get to Bangkok. Annoyingly, strong tailwinds shortened the flight, as I could have spent a lot longer enjoying the space. The pre-departure service started with a glass of champagne and some cheese and olives, which made a nice change from a bowl of mixed nuts. Cheers! I don't look like a bloke working on 1 hour's sleep, do I? And as Middle Eastern airlines like to do, an Arabic coffee and a date were offered and accepted. The coffee went into me to keep me awake, and the date went into my bag for my mum to enjoy when I got home. We pushed back a couple of minutes late and took off towards the north into a beautiful Doha morning. A northbound departure is the most common, so sitting on the left is most likely to give you a good view of the city, and it's a very attractive city to fly over too, I have to say. It was around 8 AM, and did I mention that I'd only had an hour's sleep? I'm not sure. But anyway, I started with a peppermint tea. Regular viewers, please contain your shock at this development. Our routing took us directly overhead Dubai, and it was a spectacular view. Did you know there are 2 palms in Dubai? This is the Palm Jumeirah, which everyone knows, but they built a second bigger one called the Palm Jebel Ali a little further down the coast. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it from my seat. The second one, though, never got built out, and it's still sitting there, undeveloped, out the back of the container port. Dubai really is a strange place. That's the world further up, which also never really took off. This was only a couple of days after the incredible rains Dubai experienced. I couldn't really see any flooding from up here, but I'll compare this footage to what I capture next time I fly over. Here are the menus. Qatar offers a dine-on-demand experience for both their business and first-class cabins, and there was a breakfast and an a la carte offering available that day. I'd eaten breakfast in the lounge, and airline breakfasts are rarely exceptional, even in first class, so I asked to go straight to the a la carte options a couple of hours into the flight. I used that time to explore the seat in bed mode. It was a very smooth transition into a fully flat bed, plenty long enough for all 193 centimetres of me, that's 6'4" in old money. And no foot cubby, and I did rejoice, as I was happy. The space for the feet is still not abundantly wide, but if I wanted to sleep in this seat, I am confident that I would have been very comfortable when doing so. Good privacy, as you'd expect too. I didn't waste a packet of bedding to illustrate the sleeping paraphernalia that Qatar offers, but I am confident that it would have been of high quality. I did, though, take a pair of pyjamas for future use. I decided to warm up for my meal with an old-fashioned, served with the nuts I'd missed before takeoff. I decided to skip the Armand de Brignac and Bollinger champagnes. In hindsight, I could probably manage a glass of one, or perhaps both of them, but hey, we all make mistakes. That cocktail was very nice though. My meal started, of course, with the caviar service. It's hard to know where to start in describing this. It was magnificent. Non-traditional Norwegian salmon was offered alongside the more traditional accompaniments of cream, onions and egg, along with blinis and crackers, and of course a glass of chilled vodka. The caviar was very subtle in flavour, not at all fishy, and the accompaniments were just excellent. It was exceptional. I demolished it, and the flight attendant offered me another trayful, and again, in hindsight, I should have gone around again, but I was really looking forward to what was to come, so declined. As I say, we all make mistakes. Next was an amuse-bouche. I have no recollection at all of what this was. Then a lobster and king crab phyllo pie, beautifully presented and accompanied by a glass of the Rioja. And again, this was exceptional, full of flavour and wonderfully fresh. And a substantial serving too, although that wasn't a problem for me. And for my main, I broke my steaks on a plane rule and went for the beef tenderloin. Hey, Qatar had me at Wagyu. Served with rice and mushrooms. Delicious again, but a little overcooked for my taste, as so often happens with steaks on a plane. That was more than enough for me, so I had to skip the cheese and desserts. I did manage to enjoy some Frappin XO cognac, although no video evidence exists of this fact. Without doubt, the best meal I've ever had on a plane. And 5.5 hours after leaving Doha, we descended into Bangkok. So to wrap up Qatar's first-class experience, the food was excellent and was a clear step up from what Qatar offers in its business cabins. The seat is a proper first-class seat, albeit with some miles on the clock that was inherited for another airline. I've not flown Qatar's own first-class seats, which are only found on their A380s, but I think these Cathay seats are perhaps a little better, not least from the extra privacy that they offer. As for everything else, I just didn't feel it was a full step up from Qatar's business offering. The ground experience was disappointing. Access to the Al Safwa lounge is obviously a huge plus, but not offering a first-class bus is hard to understand, and the gate experience was poor. And apart from the champagnes, the beverage offering aboard lacked the wow factor other first-class offerings deliver. And the crew were great, friendly and attentive, but again I didn't detect a significant step up from what you experience in Qatar's business cabin. Perhaps half a step up, but not a full step. As I said in the intro, Qatar has not had a focus on a first-class offering for some time, and so it's perhaps not a surprise that this experience felt a little incomplete. Food is the easiest part of an offering to amplify, and Qatar has absolutely nailed it. And I'm sure their renewed focus on offering a world-class first class will produce something exceptional when that process is complete. But right now, I don't think Qatar is quite up there with the leading first class operators, which I'd say are currently Emirates, JAL and Air France. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, don't misunderstand me, but it's my job to be ultra critical, particularly when people may be paying vast amounts of money for an experience and should only ever make that investment armed with a realistic understanding of the return that they're going to get on that investment. It's an experience I'd recommend all of you have if you get the chance, but don't expect a world-leading first-class experience. Yet. This flight was part of a multi-partner award redemption I made through British Airways. For 180,000 avios and 650 quid, I booked 7 flights, 5 of them in business and 2 in first, this Qatar flight plus the connection in from Oman. I'll cover all of those flights on the channel. I get my avios for 0.22p each. This video explains how. So allocating the total cost based on the miles flown, this flight cost me 255 quid, which is ridiculous and is a 92% discount on what this flight would have cost if you'd bought it for cash. There's a wee bit of YouTube clickbait maths in here. As I get my avios very cheaply, you'd probably not buy a one-way ticket, and the overall routing I took was a bit daft, but you get the idea. I'll also say it's no trivial matter to book this trip, as all 7 legs needed to have reward availability, and I think I was very, very lucky to be able to line up a trip that worked. But it is undoubtedly the best value I've ever achieved for a redemption, and it was an amazing experience. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Hey, give it a like if you didn't. And leave me a comment, is this something you'd look at doing yourselves? Please consider subscribing if you're new, and if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there is a Patreon account, the link to which is in the description below. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.